Bum 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 bum. Bum ba ba bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 ba ba bum. Bum 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 bum. What were some things about this melody that make you know you're singing this tune rather than something else? Let's think together for a moment. If this were a smaller class, I'd ask for your input, but I'm not sure it would be very successful in this setting. So I'll pretend I'm you and give you some ideas. Did you notice that the first line and the second line are the same? Did you notice that? And they have exactly the same notes, exactly the same rhythm. They begin and end exactly the same way, go to the same place in the middle. However, the last line is not like the others. So we have two possibilities. As we improvise, we can think about maintaining the continuity in some way at the beginning of our improvisation and maybe have something that's a little bit different at the end. We're trying to find the things that are organic to the melody. We're trying to get ideas that we can defend or support because of what's present in the melody. What kind of key are we in here? Right, we're in a major key, we're in a happy, bright key. Now that doesn't mean we have to stay there. What do you notice about the end of the first line and the end of the second line? It's not super interesting, but it is unique. We end on the same pitch 3 times in a row. Bump, bump, bump. Bump, bump, bump. So there's 3 repeated notes, and you'll also note, don't forget that the end of the second measure, bum, 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 is the same as the one right underneath it. Bum, bum, bum. And the third measure, bum, bum, is the same. So there's this idea of echoing and repeating that happens so frequently. And you may think that's not a big deal. Well, maybe it's not a big deal. I don't know. But it's something we should acknowledge. Let's think about the shape of the melody for a moment. Let's sing it together again. And somewhere in your area, would you draw the melody with me? Here we go. Ready? And bum ba ba bum 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 ba ba bum 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 pa ba bum bum ba ba. What was the most fun part for you? Wasn't it in that third line when you got to go up really high? It's like, oh, the B was so high, I barely had any room to get up for D. Yeah, and so that's a sensational part of this. You get all these repeated notes, all these quarters, and it's kind of going to get to be a boring melody. And then we get to soar up to the high note, and we get a dotted rhythm in the bottom line. Thank goodness, because so far all we've had are these quarters and eighths. So we're getting to know a little bit about the foundation of our improvisation, the melody. Let's take a look at some of the things that we might well go and do. The timing was impeccable, so now I can talk to you backwards. Take a listen to this improvisation. Suppose one could use this as a part of a prelude on a hymn or an introduction to the hymn. And as you're listening, think about the things we've just talked about and how they relate to some of the choices that are being made. So, what happened in our improvisation? We took this notion of how repetitive this song is. Instead of getting annoyed by it, we tried to make something playful about it. We tried to take the composer's idea, this core idea of the melody, and amplify it. And so as we got to the end of a phrase, we did a bit of an echo, right? And then we did even a slightly smaller echo. And then when we get to the third line, which is different, we broke the pattern. Instead of stopping after, was it 2 measures? We went all the way to the end of the line. Because in the piece, it changes when we get to the third line. Does that make sense? So we're trying to find, as we're improvising or playing with this melody, we're trying to find things about the melody that can inform some of the choices we make. Now, what we could do is we could just do this huge toccata and put the melody in the pedals. We could. It has nothing to do with the piece. And it's not wrong, right? We can just take one of the things we can do and apply it to anything. But it seems to me so much more fascinating and fun to try to decide from the inside, what does this melody want to do? What does this particular tune want to do? And so these are things to think about along the way. Let's take another example here. So often we organists think we get paid based on the amount of notes we play at once. Some of us have never played even a verse of a hymn that's not in 4 parts or more. And you still get paid the same, whether you use 4 or 5 or 3 or 1 voice. And so this notion of changing textures can be a very simple but effective one. So let's imagine that we want to play some phrases in 1 voice, some phrases in 2 voices, some in 3, and some in 4. Let's see what would happen. So we can layer. One thing to consider is it doesn't, when we layer in texture, it doesn't always have to get bigger. It can also sometimes get smaller. One of the things that tends to happen to me when I get into the heat of the moment with improvisation, I keep adding more and more stuff, and I always have to remind myself, sometimes it's okay to let the pedals go, or sometimes it's okay to let the left hand stop jiggling. You know, all of that is possible. All of these things are possible. But do think of simple things like texture. We could play this whole hymn in a really fun way with just two voices. Let's see, for example, why not, right? And at no point there really was I making a whole lot up. I was using the same notes in the left hand that appear somewhere near in the right hand, right? And if we know this idea of a scale, there's only 7 notes to choose from, guys. And almost all of them can work at any given moment. Almost all of them can work at any given moment. Let's take a look at the idea of ornamentation. So sometimes, let's suppose for a moment that we're going to accompany the melody with the harmony of a sixth beneath. These are very beautiful. If you've ever heard this piece, it's all sixths. And I think if Von Williams can do it, I can do it. So, suppose we do an improvisation where we'll let the melody sing on this stop, and we'll have the accompaniment play a sixth beneath. End of story. But we're allowed to invite some ornamentation, trills,